Hello? Hello?
Good morning, madam. How can I help?
Can you help me?
Would you like me to put you through to someone? Do you need the police?
I'm looking out of my window and I've just seen the most extraordinary thing. It was clear as day a moment ago. Absolutely clear. Is it clear where you are?
I'm afraid I'm not near a window, but it was a couple of hours ago when I came in, yes.
Such a mist. The thing is, I thought I saw Tommy, the boy next door, outside just a second ago, but he's gone.
Well, it is misty.
No, I was looking at him, right at him, and he was there, and then he wasn't there.
I can put you through to the police if you like. Very well.
The Curse of the Black Meadow.
Well, but I never saw him again. It was as though he'd never existed. What you've got to understand is that there's an overwhelming feast of anecdotal evidence, but nothing concrete, which is the way with all this phenomenon.
It was scary.
When my grandfather went for a walk, it was never thought that he wouldn't be seen again. The folklore is so rich, the creativity and artistry from the region so bound up in these legends that you can't avoid them. It is
I just wanted it back.
If you have a pint at the old plough, you can see the mist coming in, and no local, not even now, will leave the building until it's gone.
The Black Meadow, perhaps one of the most notorious places in the north of England. Apparently located on the North Yorkshire moors, it can be reached on the A169 up past Saltergate Bank and beyond RAF Fylingdales on the Whiteway Heads Road. This area has had a strange reputation for hundreds of years, and, has been discovered, there are no single or clear reasons for this. The investigation of the Black Meadow phenomena has become a curiosity for many and an obsession for some that has occasionally ended in tragedy.
Come out of the mist, my friends, sail the fields of
In 1968, Professor Roger Mullins of the University of York began collecting folk songs from the northern counties to log an oral tradition that was rapidly disappearing. One singer, name unknown, who had relocated from Winchester in Hampshire, had picked up various songs on his travels to small villages throughout the Dales. This is the recording of one. It was considered to be slightly inferior by this particular singer owing to its lack of plot. Most folk songs are ballads, and this was more of a lament. The lyrics piqued Mullins' interest as they referred to the fields of blackberry and a plea to a character or characters to come out of the mist. This tallied with research that Mullins was undergoing on the Black Meadow phenomena. The singer had heard the song several times in various villages around the perimeter of Black Meadow and remarked how the room often fell silent when it was sung and that several of the punters openly wept as they listened.
The devil has a wicked way of keeping lovers parted, but none more than the blackberry mist that makes me broken-hearted. For our love lasts long, but I see you not, though I know that you are so close. Come out of the mist, my love, come and will you tarry?
Can you tell me, maiden fair? Can you tell me if or where I shall see my child again walk upon the fields of men? Will she ever stumble back from the meadow all a-black? Will she sit upon her chair? Will I hear her on the stair? Tell me now, my spirit's full, I cannot hear my daughter call.
Written by Sir Stanley Colton in 1892, this poem captures the mystery that is Black Meadow. It has sparked a long tradition of song, folklore and poetry going back at least 500 years. Most people in Yorkshire know of the Black Meadow, and while some of the stories have found their way to the south of the country, most are ignorant as to the facts behind the legend. Most do not know the truth behind the tales of the Black Meadow. Professor Philip Hull has worked at the University of York since 1970. He is an expert in the folklore of Northern England and has a special interest in the Black Meadow.
Professor Hull, you worked with Roger Mullins in the 1960s? Until 1972.
And did you share his interest in the Black Meadow phenomenon?
Well, not at first, no. Coming from London, I hadn't even heard of it. But there was so much literature that it became impossible to ignore. It was Roger's baby, really. He was so enthusiastic. He picked every tidbit from the area, from local folk songs, as you know, to children's pictures of the mist, or the creatures, of course. And he collected local stories like the Devil and the Yolk Man, the Shining Apples, the Cry of the Rag and Bow Man, and the Foghouse. He gathered these in tales from the Black Meadow that had a short run in the late 60s.
In a local radio show from 1969, Dr. Roger Mullins was interviewed for More Tales, in which he had a regular slot for 2 months, sharing local tales, poems and songs he had discovered.
I've always been interested in Black Meadow. When I was working in Christchurch, in New Zealand, I found a book on Yorkshire folklore in an antique shop. I noticed that several of the stories were set in and around a place called Black Meadow. When a job came up as a junior lecturer in classics at the University of York, I thought it was too good an opportunity to pass up.
He had the largest collection of Black Meadow folklore and literature than anyone else in the world.
On a Saturday and Sunday, I drive out to different grid references, take pictures and knock on the doors of any local houses or establishments.
He did get into trouble with the RAF at Fylingdales, which of course for Roger just fired him up even more. The man was unstoppable when it came to BM. He was fascinated by why the military were there and whether they had any stories for him.
I was really lucky to meet up with an old pilot who had finished his service at Fylingdales in 1963, just a year after it opened. He told me some fascinating things about the mist, how pilots could see it forming from the centre. It didn't roll from the sea, and nor did it appear in early morning. This appeared from the epicentre of the Black Meadow, starting as a speck, a tiny dot, and then expanding exponentially.
When he tried to interview those in charge, he was turned away most gruffly, even though he was only interested in the local folklore. That was harmless, surely. I remember he was very upset about that.
I told him about the village, of course, and he didn't laugh. He muttered something about streams of smoke coming from distinct sources, like chimneys, when the mist was high. On clear days, of course, no source could be seen. Imagine seeing it from the air.
It was this pilot who drew Mullin's attention to Brightwater, and it was from that point that his interest expanded beyond simple folklore, beyond the Shining Apples and Rag and Bone Man, to investigations into the Black Meadow by the establishment.
Perhaps the most useful and extensive research on the Black Meadow phenomena was conducted by Sir Thomas Brightwater in the early 1930s. Following a spate of over 15 disappearances over 3 years, the government commissioned Brightwater to investigate all instances of disappearance.
This was the first example of someone taking this seriously, and it was this archive that we used. This is when Mullins dragged me into his obsession. I couldn't deny there was more to this than simple folklore.
Sir Thomas Brightwater was the lead investigator of what became known as the Black Meadow phenomena. In 1932, he led a team of 15 scientists, archaeologists and researchers to the area where they worked for 3.5 weeks, digging, mapping and recording their findings. The work of Sir Thomas Brightwater was abandoned when the project lost funding. This has been attributed to his complex relationship with Whitehall and to several articles about the project that appeared in Punch magazine in November 1932 that lampooned his work in this field.
It's very sad about Brightwater. He was hounded out of office, and he was genuinely trying to do some good.
It is with great sadness that I leave this post. I have served my constituents for 27 years, and like my father before me, have tried to better the lot of the working man. It is a sad day in which the poor and destitute lose the aid of government to battle the steady increase in vanishings upon the North Yorkshire moors.
The irony is that it was Ramsay MacDonald who personally asked Brightwater to lead the investigation into the disappearances. Brightwater felt his treatment to be a personal slight and a betrayal. He never returned to politics.
Thomas Brightwater's work was painted as an embarrassing mistake. Black Meadow was quickly forgotten nationally, and Brightwater's work hidden away only to be unearthed by Mullins over 30 years later. The local stories, however, continue to amaze and inspire.
Sam, have you seen the mist this morning?
No, Jimmy. Mama said we should go out for a picnic on the meadow.
The meadow? Did she really?
I didn't tell her about the light I saw last night.
Well, good. You know what she said last time? We won't be able to play with the stencils again.
She's made enough sandwiches for all of us.
Jolly good.
Jonathan Spurrett is in charge of the TV archives for ITV Yorkshire.
This extract is one of the only remaining 3 from a Lost Children's TV programme called Children of the Black Meadow. It was a 6-episode show broadcast on Tyne-Tees television in 1976. The show concerned the events of 4 children who lived on the edge of the Black Meadow. It caused something of a stir at the time as one of the child actors went missing. This was, of course, the main reason it wasn't recommissioned. And indeed, it was never broadcast in any other region.
What's happening? What is that noise?
Quick, Jimmy, put down your sandwich. Something is amiss.
I'm scared. Sam, I'm so scared.
Don't be scared. There's nothing to be scared of. It's just the meadow.
But Mama says we must never go to the meadow when the mist rises.
Well, we're here now.
The mist is rising.
And look all around us. A building rising from the very mist itself.
Walls, doors, windows. What is this place that we find ourselves in?
Chairs, tables, and where there was grass is now carpet underfoot. The sound, it has stopped. The mist has gone.
But this is not the meadow. It looks like a kitchen in an old farmhouse.
But who is that in the corner? Look at me. I'm trembling.
What are you doing here? I did manage to see one episode of Children of the Black Meadow, and though it was rather cheap, it did manage to capture the spirit of the place. I remember it as very eerie.
Have you been back to the Black Meadow since his disappearance?
I went there for several weeks after we realised Roger had gone missing. Roger was always going off for days at a time, so we didn't think much of it when he didn't come into the office. Thought he was off on one of those little field trips, chatting to the locals in a little pub somewhere, or ingratiating himself with some of the villagers. He had lots of friends around the outside of the meadow. But after a week, we thought we ought to contact the authorities. They never found him. Nothing. A local lady said the village had come, you see. She said the village had come. The mist had lifted and the village had come.
When the mist spreads, like an unspooling ball of wool threading over the land, can you see the smoke from the chimneys? Can you see the roofs above the cloud? And if the mist rises, the village will come. The village has come.
Talking to locals around the area known as Black Meadow today, they still talk of the village coming when the mist rises. This myth of a disappearing and reappearing village has been part of the fabric of this part of North Yorkshire for longer than anyone can remember. It informs local tales and stories, but for some, it accounts for the many vanishings that have occurred over the last 150 years.
When the mist has risen and the clouds fade, the children smile and play their games. But if you ask to join them, if you ask to skip or hop the scotch, they shake their heads in dismay. Don't come here. Listen for the cry of the rag and bone man. If you want to sup their ale or kiss the pretty maid under the yellow apple tree, they shake their heads in dismay. Don't come here. Listen for the cry of the rag and bone man.
Black Meadow appears to be quite an insignificant, empty area in North Yorkshire. But as we have discovered, its mythos and history are vast and far-reaching. No matter what you think, if the mist does rise, it's probably best to stay away. The Curse of the Black Meadow was researched and produced by Chris Lambert for MFZ and Solus Party. Music was by Kev Oyston of Soulless Party and MFZ. It was produced by MFZ. Thanks go to the Roger Mullins Research Institute and the University of York.